Hello, and welcome once more to Bear Wiseman's Gathering of Geeks, with me, Bear Wiseman, and Kathy Criswell, who is the most wonderful artist. I'm so happy to have her here, and I've heard maybe you're a bit of a geek.
A little bit.
So, as I delve deeper and deeper into the geekdom of the world, I'm starting to like to ask people what kind of a geek they are, just because of, I think the definition of geek is expanding and changing over time. So, what kind of a geek are you?
Oh my goodness. I think I really geek out things that like transport you elsewhere, where you don't have to be who you are, what you're doing at that
Mm.
exact moment. Anything that involves that.
Did you like much like fantasy or sci-fi when you were young, like for the escapism and?
Kind of. I was really, I still kind of am, obsessed with Xena.
Mm.
It's probably my favorite show of all time. I also have Warrior Princess tattooed on the back of my thighs. Um, but that was really my only, like, I guess, foray into media when I was younger, except for just watching, like, your Saturday morning cartoons. But when I say I love Xena, I was really passionate about that was my whole life.
That's absolutely one of those shows that I've always thought that, like, how come I never watched that?
Yeah, you really should. Some of the
It's
best writing and storytelling I've seen in anything ever.
truly, and I just love anything like that has queer representation before
Mm-hmm.
queer representation was allowed,
Yes.
because it was so much more organic and so
Mm-hmm.
much less stereotypical.
Yeah.
I think what was The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt
Oh my
was
god.
this show, and I was just watching it. I was like,
Unbreakable.
the show's really fun, but like the queer guy in that show was such a walking stereotype.
Pinot Noir.
He was cute, don't get me wrong, and there are obviously people like that, but when that's
Yeah.
like the only view of queerness that you ever see, it gets really
He
old
was
really fast.
tokenized.
He was.
But for Xena, when the cast and crew found out around, I believe, like episode 8 of the first season that people were viewing them that way, they found out in the Village Voice. Um, they really were like, wow, that's really cool. Let's play into this as much as we can
Mm.
and stray very far away from objectification. And we'll just do organic storytelling because the executive producer, also did Evil Dead.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did Evil Dead, and also the very first Spider-Man, the one from 2010. That's just considered,
Oh,
you
Andrew
know,
Garfield?
no,
Or
Tobey
like,
Maguire.
oh, Sam Raimi. Oh, no.
Yeah,
So,
Sam Raimi. So Ted Raimi plays Joxer on Xena,
oh, that's
and
funny.
Ted, Sam, and Rob Tapper all went to high school together in Michigan.
No kidding.
Yeah, in Detroit. So that's why they all knew each other and they all have worked on each other's projects and stuff. But I just thought it was really cool that when Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor were like, "Oh, people view us as maybe more than friends, but we can't quite do that because the network won't allow it. We're going to play it up as much as we can to an 11, to the point where they got censored very frequently from the produce not the producers, but like the network, and they were like, okay, we'll listen to you, and then they didn't, and then they just aired it anyway. It's kind of a controversial opinion, but they were the first time I'd ever had any experience with other religions
Mm.
on like a truly educational base, and they did an entire like arc in like what would be considered modern day India, and it was the first time I'd ever learned about any type of religion that way,
Hmm.
and very like respectfully, and I learned a lot. Also about Norse mythology, but they just kind of made stuff up there. I thought Xena was real until I was like 14.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah,
fair enough.
she's real in my heart.
I had such a strange moment, like, with not understanding how television worked, that I remember there being this kids program. It was one of those things, like between the
Yeah.
cartoons, there'd be like some young people there to
Mm-hmm.
talk to the kids, and they would have often like children's done fan art for
Mm-hmm.
shows. And I was so confused by how like the magic of TV worked that I was convinced that someday Shira fan art would appear from me, despite me never having done any Shira fan art. But then what was crazy was that, like, it did actually show up with my name. That
Whoa.
someone did some Shira fan art that looked like it could have been done by me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was under my name, and I was just like, it
Yeah.
happened.
I have this very core memory from when I was about 5. I would sneak out into the living room and I would try to watch television really quietly, but I didn't know which button was the channel and which button was the volume. So
Like
like
a big
actually,
old box
I
TV.
would turn the volume up all the way instead of turning it all the way to channel 12. And I was watching Barney, and I literally grabbed like a ginormous knife from my kitchen and tried to poke the television screen because I didn't understand, and no one had ever explained to me the concept of like a camera, even though my mom was a photographer. I just was like, is that how I get in there? And then that wasn't how I got in there, and I got in trouble for being very loud in the living room. But
Oh no.
it's fine. I learned.
Oh, that's cute though.
Mm-hmm.
I love the stories of like confused children just being like, I really like this. I want to be a part of it. How do I do that? And then just no, it's all just happening in a box in front of you.
Yeah, my dad told me if I could run to the school and back and do 20 push-ups, I could be an Amazon from Xena.
Hmm.
So I ran to the school and back, almost died, and did one push-up and was like, guess I can't be an Amazon. I did eventually become an Amazon.
I mean, someday. It's just, not in that moment. Life goals.
Yeah,
Something to
see?
work towards.
Exactly. Aspirations.
Yes. I love that. I love just like, when I grow up, I want to be Xena.
I still do. When I grow up. That's never going to happen.
I was very much an Animorphs kid growing up,
yeah.
so I heard so many references to Xena just because
Oh, wow.
the one character, Rachel, is
Mhm.
like the badass warrior girl, and she's like constantly nicknamed Xena Warrior Princess
I
and
love
that.
that.
So she's always just the first one to a fight, the first one to
Yeah.
like throw a blow or
But which
whatever.
animal was she?
She had a few. I think she started with the elephant, and
Okay.
she was also the bear, I believe.
Wow.
So,
My
I
sister
loved
is an
her.
Animorphs fan. Like, as an adult, went and bought all the books. We read all of them. So I know of them and I read them, but purely just because I read a bajillion things when I was younger and I don't retain most of it. But when my little sister puts pigtails in, I do call her an Andalite.
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
I was so into those books. I think I never got through all of them when I
Mhm.
was young. I think I maybe outgrew them at some point, but probably about 26 or so of them I did. Back in the day, did you guys have the like reading uh like the book pamphlets at like elementary school where like your parents could order you books or something
Yeah, like
like
the
that?
We had a book fair.
Yeah, the Scholastic books.
Oh man, I was unfortunately too poor for those, but my dad did give me permission and showed me how to walk to the library with my own little like wagon, exactly like Matilda. To the point where I can't watch Matilda without like breaking out into tears because I just love. I tried watching Matilda on the way here on the flight here on my 8-hour flight and just started crying, and the person next to me was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No," but yes. But I would walk to the library 2-3 times a week, and I would check out 20 books. And they loved me because I was such a little nerd. And they were like, "So what are you reading right now?" And I'm like, "Babysitter's Club, the Vacation Edition, number 3. It's the one where Christy goes to Maui." And they'd be like,
Oh,
"Okay."
nostalgia, the
Yeah.
Babysitter's Club.
I have all the
love
Babysitter's
those
Club books
books.
and the Goosebump books because I believe in equality.
Oh, fair enough.
And then I also had I love scary books. I love all books except for nonfiction because it's just not fun for me.
I get that. Like I've read a couple biographies of just people who I've found really interesting, but nonfiction books or even like fantasy or sci-fi set in the real world, I tend to just no. I want made up fantastical worlds. I don't want to read about this dirty old trash fire.
Kate Mulgrew, who plays Captain Janeway, but also is Red and Orange is the New Black. She's in all kinds of things. Her autobiography, well, I guess it's a memoir. It is. I read it and then I listened to her. What's it called? Narrate it, and it's the most profoundly heartbreaking but motivational book I've ever read in my life, and it's called Born with Teeth.
Oh.
And it's unique. It tells her life from the time she was born. She grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, which is an hour from me, and became famous. And it just kind of chronicles how she became famous, being conventionally unattractive, being kind of having a chip on her shoulder, dealing with a lot of internal battles with belief systems and how that affected her, and just like some sad things that have happened to her. She came from a very large family, and so it was really interesting actually. And just listening to her narrate it, because she's got that beautiful transatlantic accent that isn't real. Because girl, I know you came from Iowa. I know what you sound like. It's really beautiful.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I do find that, like, just as someone who's been a journalist for so long, that I have a hard time identifying as a fan of anything
Mm-hmm.
because, like, from such a young age, I ended up. What is that cat doing? So many strange things happening back here. But as a young kid, like, I tried joining some groups online. Like, I was big into the IGN Final Fantasy message boards when I was like 15. I have my beautiful internet husband from there who is also back in the US somewhere, I think maybe in Connecticut. Hi, Mikey, if you're watching this. But like, we met and have been friends since I was 15. What, that was like 22 years ago, just online. We've never met.
You're old.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm almost
So
the same age as you. I'm
uh,
just as old.
back when the internet was still kind of wholesome, it was just like
Oh,
wholesome stuff and then porn, but it was
I
easy to like.
I'm very lucky. I'm extremely lucky that my introduction to the internet was first off NetZero's disc that came with 10 free hours of internet, because I was gifted like not even a hand-me-down computer. It was like two generations of hand-me-down. Um, and the first website I visited was the Xena message boards.
Incredible.
And that was my first foray into the internet. I then found like fan fiction and decided I wanted to write things.
Mm.
But I was adopted by a bunch of middle-aged lesbians at the age of like 10, and I'm very lucky that that's the end of the internet that I ended up on, because they
Mm.
truly changed my life. Like, I remember them showing me the Glad website when I was 13, and I was like, I think I might like boys and girls.
Mm.
And then them being like, well, you're okay, you're normal. And me being like, I am okay.
Yeah.
But they really, and you know, the second website I ever went on to, nightwish.com.
Nice.
I know.
Hey.
The duality of man.
Mm. I mean, there have
Not
been
much has changed.
there have been great moments in that website. Like, they used to have like stories and like message boards and stuff. It was
I was on the
cool.
message boards. I don't remember a single thing. But I had a little routine when I was in high school, because I was working two jobs
Mm.
and also going to high school. I I would get off of school and I had 2 hours in between jobs. And so I would go sit at the local library with my ginormous Toshiba laptop that was like the size of a pizza box. And then I would write, and I would peruse the message boards and then listen to Dark Passion play and cry. And then go to work like nothing ever happened.
I mean, being a music geek is just its own kind of magical thing. Like, I honestly, I should maybe ease up on like my distaste for fandoms, because now that I think about it, okay, I made that one friend on the IGN boards, and then there was a like, this is like, because I, of course, I grew up in Canada. It was like this Central Alberta like Naruto fan club or something like that. And I remember going in there at the age of 18, and I met one other guy who is 18, and he and I became really good friends. He's still one of my best friends. Again, shout out Andre. You probably don't watch this, but hi if you do. And he would do like cosplay and stuff. Like, anytime I've cosplayed has basically been because he had been like, I'm such a geek. I need a girl with me. Will you please dress up and come with us to the conventions?
You're my girl cred.
Yes.
I love that. That's cute.
So I was always like, yeah, I'm happy to do it. If I can find an outfit, sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
But then just like the way that like the 12-year-olds were talking in that message board, I think like I remember the moment that I felt like I went insane was like this 12-year-old said like, haha, LOL, that's so horny. And I was like, do you know what that word means? What's happening right now? I don't. What?
But then it poses the question, were they really 12?
That's. And a girl, as they were claiming. So, I was just like, this is not the environment for me. And
This is not the side of the internet that I belong on.
And the same thing did happen on the IGN boards. Like, the reason I left them eventually was because the men kept coming at me for like being the wrong kind of fan or something like that, or like not liking Final Fantasy VII enough because I was a Final Fantasy IX kid, and just like,
I can't be friends, I'm sorry.
Yeah, apparently a lot of people feel that way.
I've actually never played 9. I skipped right over 9, but my sister's obsessed with it. My sister is the Final Fantasy nerd.
Well,
But
I'm the characters person, and
mhm.
like 7 has a great story and probably the best villain. I won't deny it that Seven's a great game.
Best soundtrack. Mm,
I will fight you on
8
that
has
for
the best
9.
soundtrack.
9 has the best soundtrack, and the guy who writes the music will back me up on that. But it's music, it's subjective. We're gonna get into like a nerd fight here that we're not that kind of nerds, really.
Absolutely not.
It's all in good fun. But
Unless you disrespect.
mm,
No disrespect.
I do have my little Final Fantasy 9 guys over there. They follow me everywhere I go.
As they should.
There's just some. I had just the most ludicrously huge action figure collection, like before I moved here, and then I was kind of like, I don't want to bring like 50 kilos of action figures across the planet. I guess I'll just sell these. And so I've only kept a few really precious ones, but my Final Fantasy IX figures are precious, and I have one of the original Where the Wild Things Are McFarlane. Those are apparently really rare, and I managed through my old McFarlane trades to get like a really nice one that's still in the box, and it's like I can't. Those are just I love a rare thing. I love unique things
Mm-hmm.
and rare things. So like, I'm a hippie. I don't like the consumerist just buy everything to have all this stuff. Like most of the stuff you see here has like memories or came from people
Also a
important
purpose,
to
because
me.
most of it's books.
That too.
Well, I've never really been a collector, but like my favorite like comic book series is called Strangers in Paradise, and that is the only franchise I will let myself buy whatever makes me happy,
Mm,
and mostly because all of it is books,
mm,
and you got like treasury editions, which are ginormous, like anthologies, which I will sit on my couch and read once a year at least, and
mm.
just have a profound experience every time. Or I have like a cup that I got in 2007. It was my first internet purchase. So like I don't really collect things per se, but what I'm noticing now is the older I get, the more I collect mementos.
mm,
I've never been like a memories person, but I've been collecting so many in the past year that
mm.
I have a little memory box now that I put them in. So that's like I do that instead of collecting things because I feel like the world has too many things and not enough like memories.
Yeah, and that's my like big hippie problem with consumerism and all of that is because like I love things to have a purpose and a meaning. So you would look around this room and think this person is like the most horrible hoarder of all time. I am genuinely like very minimalistic
Mm-hmm.
now that I moved across the world because I was such a hoarder before. I collected everything. Anything I love, I'd collect everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I had to make that decision that, okay, I'm moving across the planet, what am I actually bringing with me? And I also was like slowly on that slippery slope down to hippieism back then. I've only really been a hippie for like 6 years now, but it's been a slippery slope my whole life. Really, I'm not surprised I landed here. But it's every time I like go to markets and I just see like cheap like mass produced stuff that has no meaning and I get really sad because I love trinkets like
Mm-hmm.
like just I hate plastic, but if you bring me like a little plastic bead bracelet that you've made me, that's going to be precious to me.
Well, because it's time spent, and it's
It
not like
is. And it's just for
incredibly
me.
wasteful. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's tailored, and it's not necessarily the bracelet itself. It's the
Mm,
fact that someone took the 5 minutes to plan that
yeah,
out.
that someone was thinking of you.
Yeah.
And as that nerdy little kid who didn't have a lot of friends and
Mm-hmm.
who was always like the last one picked on teams and stuff like that, anytime I feel like someone's been thinking about me
Mm-hmm.
or like cares about me, that's such a huge thing for
Me too.
me. So I love that and I love just and that's why this room looks like it does because I just have trinkets everywhere. Like
Yeah.
there's
Well.
stuffed animals from just the creators that I love. Like I
Yeah.
love Makeshift because you can do these limited run of things, or just I don't know, like a random little ram that just from like one of my trips to Stockholm.
Okay.
Like it was like
Well,
$5 and
there's
it's
memories
so
attached.
cute. So
Like I don't
like
really. That's how I kind of feel about one of my very first favorite band of all time was called Steps. They're just think of like S Club 7.
cute.
They're a little bit more less dramatic and a little bit more diverse,
Were
but
they also on a TV show? Or
no.
okay. Hmm.
They're put together kind of like the Spice Girls
Ah,
with
right.
like a TV advertisement in the UK. I could never like bands that are local to me or like in my country because that'd be way too easy. But no, so they've been re-releasing their catalog over and over and over again, and there's like 9 different versions of the same album that I remember buying off. I made my father buy. There's Columbia House magazines where you could pick those CDs,
Yes.
and my dad was like, "I get a free one. You can pick one." Of course, he's buying James Taylor, Bob Dylan. My dad was really obsessed with Kate Bush for a hot minute. It was really cute. I picked Steps because I had seen them on Disney Channel at my grandpa's house doing a concert, and I was like, "I love this." And I made my dad buy or get the free one, and I listened to it so much I cut up the little booklet that came in the CD and I put it all over my room. But even then, I was like, I'm never gonna see them. They're from a whole world away. I had no concept of like the earth and like where things were. I was just like, Britain, where is that? That's like in Narnia. Like I won't. That's not real. My dad being like, yeah, good luck getting there. But and then I kind of fell off of them because it's just like brain donut music. It's just happy stuff. And so I just was like, oh, this is cool. But I was like 8.
I remember getting like my first Spice Girls CD, but my mom made me borrow it from a friend so she could read the lyrics, and I never understood what she was checking for. I always thought it was like sexual stuff, but she told me later that that wasn't what she was looking for, and I was like, well, what were you? It was the Spice Girls. It's not like they were gangster rappers or something like that. They didn't swear. They didn't like. I guess that's why she let me buy it, but. I do remember like having to go through like all these screening processes.
Like going through customs.
Yeah, kind of.
I was never really told like that I couldn't listen to anything, but my dad definitely had a chat with me when I first started getting into his music because I'd only ever listened to what he liked, and he was like, "There's going to be things in this music you don't understand. You can always ask me what they mean, but I do reserve the right to tell you that it's not appropriate for your age." And the one thing I will never forgive him for is he would let me sing the songs "Too Close" by Next, the really dirty song from the 90s, very loudly in Walmart because he wasn't listening to me. And I have memories of just screaming that song like up and down the aisles and like, Dad, why did you let me do that? But my dad is also the type of person, he loves what I love. And so I remember him being like, when I got really into Lady Gaga for a hot minute, we would drive my sisters to softball and he would just be screaming Bad Romance. Also, when I was in softball, my senior year of high school, let's see, that was 2007, he would sing 7 Days to the Wolves really loudly out of the car, like scream it. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, embarrassing my daughters. And I was like, oh, thank you. But that's why he's my best friend. So
I love that. My brother shows up to his children's school on the last day of school every day in a banana suit with a bag of candy, and I love that. He's like, specifically just to make his kids embarrassed and like, you know, like, I don't know, acclimatize his children to being embarrassed. I don't know, but it's great. I love it. He's been doing it since like elementary school, and I think his kids are in middle school now, so he's still showing up with candy and a banana suit. I love it.
I would pick my sisters up from school when I was old enough to drive, and I remember my middle sister being like, you have to, like, I have to check this playlist you have, because if you show up with music that's not good, like, you're picking me up 3 blocks down and I'm going to be late. And I'd be like, okay, well, here's the playlist I'm going to play. But back then we didn't have playlists. We had CDs. Here's my mix CD. And Nori would be like, yeah, that song, not okay. That's annoying. That's weird. I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, and Nori was like, just take this CD. Pick me up to this CD. I'm like, this is a bunch of ska. Okay. That's fine. We can pick it up with trumpets on the way home from school. And then we would get 2 blocks away, and Nora would be like, "Can you put in the Nightmare CD?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now. So I am secretly cool, and you have to be okay. You with your studded belt. I see." Yeah, but all in good fun. I remember being that age, and no matter what, breathing was mortifying for me. So.
I mean, like, my brothers would definitely do as much as they could to embarrass me, just generally speaking. They're very protective in that, like, only we can fuck you with you sort of way, so...
like, my sisters and I will squad. We were raised very, very tight-knit, because I practically raised them. And so, if anything, but my little sister was always so into everything. Like, I love what you love. I love what you love. My little sister brought Century Child to kindergarten show and tell and played it for the entire kindergarten class. And I wish so badly that I could have been there. But this is the same sister that danced to the Numa Numa song, the Dragon Stand in Tane or whatever it's called.
Is it?
Ozone, yeah. At
Yeah.
10 years old in a cow costume that was 3 sizes too big for the school show and tell.
That's adorable.
I'll show you a video. It's hysterical because she's just, oh, she's so tiny. And she's really, like, she was like a gangly child. And so it was just her in this ginormous cow costume just going hard. I'm like, man, this would have been TikTok famous 20 years later.
Oh, truly, like there's so many things from like the early internet that are just like so many gems. That should be on Instagram and those like how many of these do you
Mm-hmm.
remember? Like the rejected videos, the ultimate showdown of ultimate destiny, like homestarrunner.com.
Misheard lyrics.
Misheard lyrics. Did that start with Wishmaster?
It probably did. Hamster, a dentist. I know them
Yeah.
all
I
to the
don't
point where I don't know the real
Yeah,
lyrics anymore.
nobody knows the actual words to that song anymore.
That's yeah. I remember being very frustrated because I was like, "This is so disrespectful to this band," and then the next year, listen to it, be like, "This is hysterical."
Truly.
Like,
I that's something I should actually like if I ever get the chance to interview Tuomas Holopainen, I really should ask him what he thinks of the misheard lyrics to that song. Like, is he cool with him? Does he like because I do know some artists will absolutely just have a good laugh at that. I also know some artists will just be like, I put honest work into those lyrics and you're shitting all over them.
well, they're so old at this point that I'm pretty sure everyone just looks back at that era of their life with like the amused fondness of being young.
Yeah.
And also there was the birth of the internet, and I feel like I don't know the man, but anything that comes from a good place of just like heart and humor, there is a level of respect there.
Yeah.
Because it's no one's trashing the lyrics.
No.
If anything, you have to be I'm very particular about never ever ever saying anything negative about anyone's pronunciation of things because it just goes against and everything I believe in, making fun of the way people speak. So like that's why I didn't really like them for a long time, because I was like, that's disrespectful to how she is singing. But then I realized that's just literally how she is singing. It has nothing to do with how people speak.
Yeah.
And then I was like, Kathy, you're making this way too difficult. Just laugh about it. And then I just started laughing about it.
Have you seen the one for the Skyrim theme? That one's funny, and I think this is what I was going to talk
No.
about because they're not actually singing in English.
No.
So they're doing misheard lyrics in English to made up words. And so it's like and it's the trailer, it's not even like the actual song, so it's the trailer. So it's even like talking about the like narrator's voice, and it's like instead of saying Dovahkiin, it's like poo fucking. And when the lyrics are something like Me gusta.
Oh no.
He's my god. Just
you can't show me that because I will never unhear it, and then you'll ruin Skyrim for me, and you can't do that.
It's pretty good. It's as good as the Nightwish one, and I've never said that about another misheard lyrics, but
wow, that's high praise.
It's I'm really trying to think of how it goes because it's been stuck in my head so many times, but I have to then think of like how
I
does
sing
the
Burger
song
King
go?
all the time, like Burger King, Burger King.
But some of it's just like for the king, for the king.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
I hope no one important is watching this. I'm so sorry.
Shout out to From Software, we love you. I mean, like we all love Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that, like, okay, I'm like one of those people who loves but is still critical of Skyrim.
Because you have an analytic brain.
It is.
I
I've spent
turn
too
my
much
brain off.
time in journalism, and so I love Skyrim. There was, I think it was like a Penny Arcade comic that came out right when it came out, and I still read Penny Arcade comics back then, apparently. And it was talking about just like walking through the world, just shoving everything into your mouth and then just tripping balls in the world. And it happens so viscerally that like your vision swims and you fall over and stuff. And I was just like, I love doing that. Yes, that's my favorite part of Skyrim. I just want to like, it's cold outside. It's beautiful in Skyrim. I just want to walk around this world and go through dungeons and hit stuff. Is there a story? Nah, but
Yeah.
honestly, I also don't really care that much. I just like this world.
I think that's I've played it for the plot 2 or 3 times, and then ever since then I used to do like a shots in Skyrim thing for my 5 Twitch friends, where I would go start at the beginning of the game with the character creator, and then every time I would start immediately looking for dragons right off the bat, like level 4. I only have a stick. And I would try to see how long it would take me to like beat a dragon. And every time I died, I would take a shot. And I did not turn survival mode on because that's too much. I can barely take care of myself. I cannot take care of someone in this video game. And I would just go as long as I could without dying, trying to just find dragons. I didn't care about the plot. I already know it by now. It's pretty simple.
There's not a whole lot there.
No,
it's just a little civil war decked out with a whole bunch of other stuff, and then a dragon.
And the other stuff is really interesting, and the main plot is not so much because it's very simple. Yeah. And you can pick your Stormcloaks, you can pick your Imperials, or you can be like me and just fall in love with every woman in the game and be like, okay, suddenly I'm a werewolf. I believe in werewolves and vampires. And then also, yeah, do you know, okay, this is completely off topic, and it's the funniest thing that's ever happened to me. I was looking, because I was writing something, and I wanted to fact check myself, so I Googled something to do with Skyrim, and I Googled Auri, Skyrim. I didn't know there was a character in Skyrim named Auri if you had like a mod or something, and she's a cannibal. But I had I had only just begun The Name of the Wind. Like, I was only 20 pages in, and I really thought that Auri was a cannibal, and I was like, there's no way that sweet angel baby is a cannibal. Oh my god. And it traumatized me. I screenshotted it because I literally screamed out loud. And everyone was like, are you okay? And I was like, wait, this teeny tiny blonde fairy princess from a book is also in Skyrim, and she's a cannibal? I'm very lost right now. And I had to sort it out in my brain, but the immediate shock of just seeing Auri, cannibal, Skyrim, being like, hold on, one of these things is not like the other. I need to process this information.
But yeah, you had this wonderful idea about tying the Kingkiller Chronicle into Skyrim, and I would love for you to share that because I love it.
So basically, Auri's cog that she works really hard to get, that is a Dwemer cog, which if you've played Skyrim, you know that they're really kind of useless until you need them for that one side mission, but they are so heavy for no reason. And so she has an emotional support cog, as we all should, and that she can maybe see things that we can't see. And so she listens, she's a listener. So when she needs some comfort, she curls up with it, and she can hear like the lore of Skyrim. Like, she can hear people chanting, she can hear, or like it tells her where it was, what it was. And then when she dreams or she needs to like be elsewhere, she dreams of like Blackreach, because it doesn't match any of Skyrim. It's so neon and pretty.
It's such
like a very dream world. And so like when she needs to be away, she dreams of that world. But when she gets too lonely down there, she listens into the cog again, and it wakes her up.
So even like the under thing could be in the Blackreach.
The under thing is the Blackreach.
Incredible. I love that. Yeah, because like really it could just
shouting
be like
names of things. They go hand in hand. So a shout is really just a dragon name, really.
Yeah, that checks out. See? I'll take it.
Yeah, and you gotta learn the name of something, and you have to learn the full 3 words of something, so. I love tying worlds together. I love finding like sci-fi shows, but then video games that are so close but not quite, and then you can mesh them together somehow. Makes me so happy.
Have you ever paid attention to the Pixar theory?
Yes. It's like one of those things that's like in the back of my mind, but I never really went down the rabbit hole.
I love it just because, you know, people have this kind of stank attitude of like, well, I can disprove it by doing this or whatever, but it's not about that. No. It's about like, it's more of a puzzle. Yeah. As the people who love the Pixar theory have said, that they consider it a puzzle that they want to like solve it. Like, how does the next Pixar movie fit into the theory? Well, yeah, that's so much like more fun.
You're just tying together a bunch of loose ends that were never meant to be loose ends. Yeah. So visually, I think of a carpet.
And they love like Easter eggs and like to link to other movies. And so if you can like find lore reasons for that, I love that.
That happens in music a lot too. When like songs reference a song title from a previous album, or when they reference lyrics from a different album. So that's like, it's not one of those like, I'm better than someone because I understand this, but it's more like a little, oh, I get this, that's so exciting.
Yeah, there's a great song by Machine Supremacy called Indiscriminate Murder is Counterproductive, and it's about gaming. It's about you know, like running around and murder hoboing everyone in a game like Skyrim or Dragon Age or whatever, those, you know, general open world RPGs. And they made later a second song that's off their concept album that's set in their own world, but thematically it also worked as a sequel song. So they reused that same riff, this do 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 do. It's very catchy, and they reused it, but then they like added a little like twist and a flair to it, and then turned it into like a sequel song. And it's about this character who has kind of been similar to a murder hobo just in who she was, that
Mm-hmm.
she was just a killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's trying to find purpose in, like, she knows she can never
Mm-hmm.
unbecome a killing machine,
Mm-hmm.
but she wants to find meaning in killing them. She wants to kill bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that they did this little musical thing that connects these songs together, because they didn't need to. They could have just made the second one into its own song, unrelated. But because it tied so nicely thematically into the other song, it made one of those nice little like Easter eggs again. That's like, how are these songs related to each other?
Mm-hmm.
I love it, and I just eat that stuff up.
Lovely.
Anything that has like an extended world.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my own writing, I've started to do it. That if you read my fantasy stories, and if you were to then read Nightsea stories that are specifically set in Illinwood, you might notice Illinwood. Hey, that world that your fantasy stories are set in is Illinica, and maybe there's a chunk of Illinica in the Nightsea.
I had a very little fun ritual that I would do when I would write, and it was I would hide 4 Nightwish song titles in any piece of fiction that I wrote, but I worked them in very seamlessly. So if you didn't know, you didn't know.
Mm.
And I've started to do that with other projects too. I know you've seen them. And I always would put Star Trek quotes and things that were never about Star Trek. But I just love little Easter eggs. So, like, if you really know me, you know my favorite music, you know my favorite people, my favorite shows. So, if you read something that I wrote, whereas, like, in the story that I'm writing now, there's a phrase you can see where it says the Merry Scallywag. And no one would really get that except for, like, my handful of people on the internet. And if anyone else gets it, I want to be your friend. So, you can be in my people on the internet. So yeah,
I love that. That's the same with, again, my fantasy series. Is if you get to, is it chapter 3 or chapter 4? It's story 3 or 4 at this point, I've decided, but it's all basically about me moving to Finland, and so there's so many Easter eggs in there just about me moving to Finland. Like, a lot of the characters are based off people I met when I first moved here, and you know, like there's one guy who's like really like hardcore, like almost nationalist, but also kind of like derpy. Yeah, that was a guy I was seeing when I first moved here, and but yeah, he was very sweet, and he left enough of an impression of just like loyalty to his country that I was like, this guy should be in a story.
unique people will do that to you. They make
Yeah.
you want to write stories about them.
And then like so many, I think every single town name is an Easter egg off of a Finnish band.
Really, I purposely don't name any towns because I always feel like I always have trouble with names too because I internalize these things so much. I'm like, what if someone with that name sees this and they don't like it? What if they feel like I'm being mean to them? That's like, no, they're not going to see this. And so I will go through and I will go to name generators and I'll just click, 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 trying to find one that sticks. And if I like it, I'll keep it. Otherwise, if I try to like brainstorm, I get too into my own head.
Mm.
And if I have other people brainstorm for me, then I feel like, well, what if I don't credit them appropriately? Like, what if, like,
I think I've had people just like inspire full stories, but well, honestly, like the Vitmar Chronicles is just based off a conversation I had with my ex's brother, who also wrote fantasy stories.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we were like, okay, what would happen if we were in a fantasy story together?
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, yes, well, my character would want to have so many children, but something bad would happen to his wife, and then she'd become like barren, and it'd be really devastating for him. But she'd also be like the love of his life, so he also like wouldn't leave her because of that, and it would be like a whole thing. And I was like, boom, done. This is part of my story. I mean, he actually married that girl. I didn't marry his brother. Obviously, I moved to Finland instead. So
As one does.
it,
I'm working on it.
It doesn't it doesn't like follow real life very exactly, because also the character that I have like left Finland, essentially Finland, but she left afterwards. She decided that this was not for her. She wanted to go back to the people she was comfortable with. This is a very like war-torn country that she knew if she stayed here she would have to watch a lot of her friends die, and she just didn't want that. So that's not my vibe with Finland. I'm actually okay here. But still, like, I love that stuff that's just like, this is just a little slice of like real life in here.
Slice of life. I like using music as a means of conjuring images in my brain, and when I can conjure that image I can describe that image, and describing that image is where it comes from. I know some people, everyone writes differently, but like I'm a very visual person, but also a very auditory person, so like even if I hear someone say something in a very specific way, that will stick with me for a long time, and then I have to work it into something, or I have to start a project with it, or I can't sleep.
It's true. I've had so many things like cycling in my head as like things to write. Even it might just be like an essay on love or something like that. But there's some phrase that I said to a friend at some point, and she was like, "You have to write this somewhere because you changed my world with it." And it was, I think I said, "Grief is love without anywhere to go." And that I should be so happy to grieve as hard as I have because it's a direct reflection of the love I felt. And her boyfriend had died, and so she was very like grateful, I felt, to like have that. And she's like, "It's such a good line, you have to write that somewhere." I was like, "Oh, thank you." Like,
Aw.
I absolutely will, just for you.
I don't think I have any. I get inspired by other people's quotes and other people say it. I think the one that, obviously, other than like songs that I like, because that's my whole personality at this point, the one quote that's really stuck with me is from God of War Ragnarok. I know you know the one. It's also about grief. I like writing about grief because I feel like it's the only emotion that everyone experiences unilaterally, and no one gets a say in how they experience it. It just happens. You can choose to dissuade anger, you can choose to dissuade happiness if you really want to, but you can never dissuade grief because it will always come for you. And so it's almost like death himself is waiting for you. And so you kind of just got to face it. But I mean, someone could tell you the same thing a million times in a million different ways, and if one way sticks, then that's the way, right, like the right way for them. But like,
I love that. And it just goes to show how unique we are as people in general, that, we're all just little like geeks running around loving the stuff that we love. And if there's, I lost my train of thought with that. I'm sorry.
We're all just little geeks trying to do our best in the world.
Yeah.
Trying to find other geeks, or trying to just make our way. Yeah. Like, what were you made for? Yeah. I feel like I'm personally exactly where I was made to be, and doing exactly what I was made for. So
I'm hoping I'm on my way now.
There you go. And like you don't have to always be there. We are constantly evolving. But someone once said to me that the highest gift an artist may receive is to be seen and like acknowledged in their art. And I feel like once that started happening to me without me even realizing it, that I hit this really big plateau, like a happy plateau of just like acceptance, and I just feel like so seen and heard and validated. And so like now I don't have to be traveling any direction. I can just do whatever I want, and it works. And I found that being in that state actually is the most creative I've ever been in my whole life, by a lot, probably than any other year in my life. Especially last year was the most creative year of my life in the way I can't even begin to explain.
That's so fun, because like this is like a whole thing with your whole vibe that I love so much, is that you're just like a promoter of positivity.
Oh yeah.
And like, if you could make a career out of this, I would totally support you in doing it. Just like
follow my Patreon.
Kathy, promoter of positivity, only positive stuff here. And I just love that though, because like you've had this like huge just like wash of support for Johanna Korkala, because she's inspired you so much.
Oh my goodness.
And then that's like rubbed off on me, and like you've been inspiring me then, and then hopefully someone somewhere will be inspired by me and take that onward. And
yeah, so when their next album is named after me, then you can just thank me for that. No. I am a firm believer in, if I can acknowledge the bad things, I have to acknowledge the bad things. You cannot ignore them, but you don't have to give them any energy. You do have to admit that they're there, but you can either see a good in it, because there's always a good in it, even though you may not see it right away, and it may be a spite good, and you may grimace at it every time you think about it. But also, you do, if you can focus your energy on people that are worth it, and things that are worth it, and people that don't take emotional energy from you, then like you have so much energy when you're done. Like when I go into that art creative state and I like space out and I started painting at like 11 in the afternoon, all of a sudden it's dark and I need to go to bed, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And this appeared. This is so cool. It's like
a little technical hiccup there, that we were talking about positivity and just how good things spawn good things.
And good people spawn good people. Good people attract good people. And if you find a good person that's worth putting your energy towards, and they trust someone else, and you know that they have a good sense of character, then you don't even have to vet them in your head. You just know that they're good people. And then your little network of goodness. And then if you ever need to fall back on that network of goodness, you've got a big old net there ready to catch you.
There's something to be said for the skill for finding silver linings in things. And I think it's one of the most precious things that you can have, because there's always going to be crap. There's always going to be bad stuff. And if that's all you see, it will really destroy your life. And, and like, I love to find a silver lining in anything. And the hardest thing that was ever for me to find a silver lining in was my time that I spent as a Christian, because it left so many bad marks on me.
Understandable.
But the one thing that I must credit to that was that it taught me to find the silver lining in things, because what I was doing at that point, I was finding God's purpose. And it's something that, like, it's helpful if you need that, for sure, that like finding a reason for things to happen. If you feel like you need a reason to explain why things are the way they are, then that's helpful. And so that gave me such a sense of peace in that moment when I was happy in my Christianity. But then all of these, like, truly, like, my high school priest was a pedophile. Like, he got fired for child pornography. So there was some bad stuff related to...
You can take that mindset that you had and strip away all the religious aspects to it.
Exactly.
And keep the lessons that you learned.
And really, in the end, I found out that it wasn't God giving me those things. It was me finding them myself. Yeah. And so that is the... Like, honestly, truly, like, one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned in my life came out of that ugly place of toxicity. But it's something that I rely on, that, like, I wasn't diagnosed with any depression until 2017, I want to say, and it hit me very hard. But one of the things that's helped me get through it and get to where I am in such a good place right now is being able to say, like, okay, all of this bad stuff happened. Like, you met this person, you fell in love with them, you adopted them into your family, they stabbed you in the back and then died. You know, that's a pretty rough thing to go through.
It's also a very finite thing.
And it's been not even a year. It's been barely half a year, and I'm at complete peace with it. And how many people can say that after?
Not a lot. Well, it takes a certain emotional maturity too, and you have to really want to get there. You can say it all you want, but to believe it is something different. I obviously have a little bit different of experience when it comes to Christianity. I was never raised in anything like that, but I did have my own really negative experiences with being told that I was abnormal and being told that I was a product of evil and that my sisters were going to die because I was who I was. And like, if you knew me then and you know me now, I was basically their stand-in parent, very, very young. And so to tell a 12-year-old that their whole family's going to die because you like watching Xena, but also kind of like Hercules, but also really like Xena, but also really like Hercules, then like that's devastating. But the silver lining of that is, look where I am exactly in this right in this minute right now.
Yeah. If you happen to be watching this and you notice that the light changed halfway through this, we had to run off and go do an interview with Alta Mullen Road. So this this is like one of my favorite stories, is just how like you were such a positive force and you cared so much about being respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And as a journalist who's so used to people demanding the time and energy of people, you were such a breath of fresh air to me that was like, I want to make this person's dreams come true if I can, because
Dreams are
you
dangerous.
deserve it.
It's really special to be able to really respect people's boundaries, but respect their artistic autonomy, and then have them respect it back. Because I never really knew what it was like to feel completely artistically validated, because I didn't start making art until 2020. Coincidentally, my very first art piece started the very same day that the Altamano debut album came out. I didn't listen to it then, but I felt that was very kismet. Like, it was very cute. There's so many things I can say that I'm just, everything is coming up. Johanna, I suppose. I suppose. But, but it's just very sweet. I feel very at peace, and it's very strange to be creatively at peace with oneself, because everyone's like, you gotta always want to get better and do better. And I'm like, but when I don't focus on that, I do get better. You saw my art in the span of 1 year. I made leaps and bounds because I wasn't thinking about getting better. I was just painting what was in my head.
And it's so true of art, and I love that, because anyone who's creating, like, one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Adventure Time, and it's just, sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something. And it's just a casual thing that Jake the dog says, and it's stuck with me for so long, because anytime I hear someone like try something and not be good at it, I always just say that to them immediately.
I just gave up on watercoloring after the first try, because I tried it and I was like, this is terrible, I hate this. And then I moved to Finland, so I was like, well, now I don't have to worry about it ever again, but it's still waiting for me when I come home. It's going to be sitting on my bedside table staring at me like, you gave up on us.
And this is something that I was saying earlier today, was just that I love this thing that I heard on the internet that was just, how dare you not share your art with the world? And I said this in the interview because it was very much in the vibe that we were talking about. But I love that. I want people to just open their hearts out and puke out what's inside. And if it's not good, it's not good. But
What is good?
Look at the room.
What is good?
Always refer to the room as, it doesn't matter how good it is, as long as you were passionate when you made it. People will vibe off that.
The heart is so...
That's why The Room is such a thing. Like, how old is that movie now? And people still flock to theaters, and Tommy Wiseau is so popular, even though he's still like the most mysterious, strange man in the world. And I just vibe off his weirdness. And if you watch The Disaster Artist, you see him just being like this unabashed maniac. And Greg Sestero, or, you know, James Franco's brother, whose name I can't remember right now, acting him, but just being like, this guy's energy is wild. Like, I could understand why, if you met someone who was just that maniacally into what he was doing, that I would probably have done the same thing Greg Sestero did and just been like, yeah, I'll move to LA with you. What? Okay, crazy dude, let's go. It's just, that's what passion is for people, and I love it.
Okay, I'll buy a plane ticket for 7,000 kilometers away, and I will take a holiday that I probably shouldn't have been able to afford, but somehow made work. And the amount of... I've only had this happen a couple times in my life, where I've truly gotten to look out into a crowd and see everyone who's ever loved me and supported me. The first time was when I got married, because I could look out and be like, wow, look at all these people that came out for me. But the second was when and I'm still going through it right now, when people are asking me, I'm keeping tabs on me right now, I'm making sure I'm safe, and like, so many people came together to get me here. I worked my buns off, don't get me wrong, you know how hard I worked to get here. But the decision was never a decision. It was, yes, I was going to make it work no matter what. And the amount of people who came together to help me get here, or have helped me while I'm here, beautiful. And I've met most of them in the past year.
And that's just the power of just being a good person. Like,
I never had to call upon the masses like that. But even people that I never expected came out of the woodwork. And supported me in ways that I was truly flabbergasted by, whether it be financially or whether it be emotionally. People I never thought that I would meet here have come out of the woodwork, and I've met them and I've made friends while I'm here. I'm a firm believer of making friends wherever you go, and but not expecting anything of your friends. Because I like being that person that does not cost emotional energy, but maybe could give some like emotional energy back. Because I don't expect anything from anyone unless, communication is had. And so out here, I'm just having the time of my life with no expectations, no rules, nothing. And then when I go back, I'll go right back to my normal little life. But like, I'm still very much in awe. Like, there was a specific moment when I was by myself in a hotel room in a country whose language I don't speak after one of the most emotional moments of my life. And I just sat there in the morning as the sun rose, and I was like, I can't sleep. I don't know what my sleep schedule is. I don't know how to call for a taxi. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow, how I'm going to get there. But like just thinking about like what had happened the day before, I was like, man, that's so cool. No one can ever say they had something like that happen to them. And I don't know if I'll ever have anything that will happen to me ever again.
I should really change this to just the positivity podcast. Let's talk about stuff we like.
I mean, we can talk about grittiness. I have plenty of it to share, but I tried very hard to make my art into an art journal because I am a writer at heart. I have been for years, but I never told anybody because it was used against me in a very negative way. But then someone I really much admired talked about how they tentatively stepped into creativity in that way, and I was like, maybe I can do the same thing. And then I did the same thing, and then they did the same thing, and some pretty amazing things have come from that.
Can't deny.
It is what it is.
I love it. I love just all of this, and I love there's sort of like a fellowship among geeks too. I think a lot of the time that like when you're a geek and you find a geek that you vibe off of, like we were sitting in Kite just talking about Star Wars, or not Star Wars, Star Trek for like an hour at some point, and I was just like, why are we not podcasting right now?
Or we were just talking about Dragon Age.
Yes.
And how I wish I was Cassandra Pentecost because she's so cool. But like I look touching back on the fantasy thing, I call it mental cosplaying, where I have a very vivid imagination to the point where it sometimes gets the best of me. I love thinking about what if I was somebody else, but it used to be a coping mechanism. Like I would watch the Rugrats movie, and when Chucky Finster was looking for his mother, I would literally I had to stop the movie and go cry. And till this day, I still can't watch it. Like Matilda, I can't watch it without crying. I don't know why I thought I could, but like, I don't know. I just love wondering about what it would be like to be somebody else, but in a really cool way. And I think that comes from a well of empathy, where
I was just gonna
putting
say.
yourself in someone's shoes, and whether it's creatively or if I come up with a character and I'm like, well, if I were this person and I had these traits, what would I do? And so it's like, what would Jesus do? But it's like, what would I do as them?
Truly. Well, and that's what writing characters always was for me, is that I'd just be like, okay, this person grew up like this, has these traumas and struggles, has these like strengths and skills. How do they deal with this crazy thing that's happening to them right now? Knowing what I know about them. And it's funny that just through that sense of observation over time, I've developed like a fairly good register for just mental health and like people. So like, why is this person being shitty to me right now? And if you can step outside of yourself and not take it so personally, you might see like, okay, what do I know about this person? Maybe they've been going through a rough time lately. Maybe something's like not so easy.
It's like astral projecting into their psyche.
Kind of, yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, that's really all it is just having that understanding. And it doesn't mean that, we act correctly the first time around, because we are humans before anything else. We are highly sentient, sensitive beings. We are going to act the ways we act, but it's how you control those after reactions that really, really makes it. And I feel like when I write things, I do come from that angle as well, but I'm like, whose story am I telling? Who is going to see themselves in this, and how can I do them justice? What small niche of people is this going to touch, and how can I make it so they feel seen without excluding anybody, but also making it interesting, and also making it something that I want to tell. And I find that for me, it's always little teeny tiny characteristics that I have in myself that have bonded me with other people. And if I can make that bond something that people want to read and understand. Do you know how many times I've read someone's like even like in just in articles.
Mm.
I've read someone's take on things, and I've read their experiences, and I'm like, I would have never known.
Mm.
I would have never known. I would have never lived that life. People I know are like, we're very different. We come from extremely different backgrounds. We are similar in age, but like that's about it.
Mm.
And when you share things, like you learn
Mm.
their experiences, and when you learn their experiences, you can think about their experiences, and when you think about them, you can write stories about them.
And that's like the everything in and then the exhaust fan of art
Mm-hmm.
that I love, that it doesn't matter how much something has been done before,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you can find something new and interesting in
Mm-hmm.
it. And so someone, I think it was a webcomic called Leftover Soup, where this girl is feeling really sad because she's trying to make a new like D&D character, but she feels like she's just kind of rehashing her last one. And her friend is telling her that, like, well, what interests you? You're very religious, so like obviously you read a lot of the Bible, but like what else do you take
Mm-hmm.
in? Like, do you watch Star Wars? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you have like, like a savant who walks on water but also has a like laser sword, then boom, you got like a whole new thing. Now add 6 other things that inspire
Mm-hmm.
you into that, and you've got something no one's ever seen
Mm-hmm.
before. So anytime, and that's why, like, because there is so much just kind of general stuff that hasn't done so much new, that when I find something new that excites me, I just lose it. I get
Mm-hmm.
so emotional and excited
Mm-hmm.
whenever I watch, I think Andor from Star Wars, which I've never been that big of a Star Wars fan. And Star Wars is so oversaturated right now. It's just as bad as the MCU. Thanks, Disney. You're kind of pooping on our party a little bit, but I don't love corporations. I'm sorry. But anyways, Andor was like, I was watching it and I was like, ugh, this is like a heist. Okay, like fun. Let's see, I guess. The heist was over after like 3 or 4 episodes, and there was still like, I don't remember, it was maybe like a 6 episode season, but it did not at all go where I expected it to. It didn't follow the pattern I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting it to, and especially considering a lot of Star Wars movies haven't been that good lately. I was just like, I'm genuinely interested in watching the second season of this now, all based off of a character who's like a one-off dude in a movie who dies in the end. And it's it's
Well,
it's one of those things where you're like, we need more Star Wars stuff. Who can we make a show about? That guy from
that
Rogue One.
random spin-off. I
Yeah,
feel that way about The
it's
Witcher.
great.
Like I read the first Witcher book. I was meh. Geralt is purposefully incredibly boring
Hmm.
and monotonous, and it takes a certain additional storytelling. It's almost like reversing the A B plot, because the A plot is so boring. You have to have a juicy B plot. And I didn't expect to really go very far in the series. I just started it one day during a blizzard because I had nothing else to do, and I found Tisea, who I found was incredibly like really fun. And I was like, wow, this is I didn't get to the book with her in it. And when they like the so much potential was there, and like so much I wanted to write things about her.
Mm.
Like I wanted to take her and put her in other situations. I'm like, this is juicy. This is a very nuanced character that like my favorite thing is like in The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, there is no good person and
Mm.
there is no bad person. They're all bad,
Mm.
but they're all good,
Mm.
and they all have good intentions. Can come from a bad place, and bad
Mm.
intentions can come from a good place, and you have to sit really heavy with the fact that there is no clear-cut morality here.
That's exactly what I loved about the 2004 Battlestar Galactica.
I've never seen it.
I always call it Game of Thrones in space, because I
Okay.
feel like what people loved about Game of Thrones was that anyone can be the villain of any
No one is
episode.
infallible.
Exactly. And so that show just covered the spectrum of, like, for example, the 2 people in charge. You have like the military guy and the president, and they are so at odds in the first couple of seasons. They are just like fighting each other half of the time, even though they're on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they come from such different places that, like, any episode you can just be like, oh, he went too far, oh, she went too far, oh, like, guys, like, are you kidding? Oh, you're just playing politics and you're not caring about the people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They had these like visceral responses to just what was happening. I couldn't pick who my favorite characters were because they were all so brilliant. And just like, I love that show. I'm amazed that I've only watched it once, but
I know of it, but I kind of feel the way about Star Trek Voyager. I won't go into too many details because you haven't seen it, but I think
Yet.
yes, please. It's very good. I think, and I feel actually an even better example of that is the X-Files. Because they are almost very rarely morally in the right. Because you've got Mulder, who's a nutcase, but a very lovable one. And you've got Scully, who's religious, but like not. But she's also waging an internal battle with. She only believes what she can see. But how does that translate for her? And actually, if you want to full circle things, the film Contact that they should have sent a poet was inspired by. That's a great example of that. Of I only believe what I can see, but then when I can't prove what I saw, you have to believe me. After it's that's a. Have you seen it?
I have not, but it's on my
You
list.
really should watch it soon because the line in itself where she says they should have sent a poet, it's not like heartbreaking, but it's definitely like a yeah. And I remember because when people are inspired by things and I'm inspired by them and I really enjoy them, I want to learn about them. But I feel like if I can do my own research, then I'm going to. So I watched it with no expectations, and then I was really blown away because I do love the X-Files, and it's very similar to that. She reminds me a lot of Scully. And so my personal mantra is strong like Xena, smart like Scully.
Oh, nice.
I have it on t-shirts. I tag all my lifting posts with it. And so I feel like Scully was always really smart about how she balanced the two parts of herself and how she could reconcile that with herself with what she had seen and had experienced. And then Mulder was just there like, I just want someone to just hear me and listen to me and not call me silly or stupid or not like criticize me or, murder my whole family or something, but like that's why shows like that. But the downfall is when you have shows with 22 episode seasons, you can't, you lose a lot of quality.
Yes.
I'm glad you agree.
Hello.
Someone agrees with me.
A cat screaming over there for some reason, I guess.
We're best friends. Make friends with every cat.
Hey, buddy. You want to come? Oh, you're just feeling crazy. Okay, run along. Oh, well, let's just, as we're kind of wrapping up here, because we do have a show to go back to when we're done here, tell me a little about your stories, since you've been writing as well, and I talk enough about myself in general, so.
Well, I've been writing since I was 12 years old. The first thing I actually was a little bit younger. The first thing I ever wrote, and you are allowed to laugh at this, was I wrote Sailor Moon fan fiction to the song Back at One by Brian McKnight.
That was my all-time favorite song.
Well, if you like Sailor Uranus and Neptune, because I was such a voracious reader as a child, I found fan fiction very young, for better or for worse, and it shaped me. And I was writing it for years and years about things that I loved because I felt that like there's always more potential than what studio writers can give you because they do have to please the masses. And most of the times when you find a writer and you want to expand upon their creation, they love that. They love it. Unless they thought of that first and you stole their idea. But, so the very first original thing I ever wrote was a story called When It's Time. And it had been sitting in my drafts for a very long time. And it didn't have a title. It was actually going to be called Absolute Silence, which doesn't fit it at all. Doesn't fit it at all. And I got halfway, about 70% of the way through the plot. It's just about a woman who's escaping a village that doesn't understand her. And she finds a creature that's human-like in the woods but cannot speak because her voice has been stolen from her by those who want to give power over her. And this woman is like, well, I have legs that work and arms that work. I can go find your voice for you, but I don't want you to die because if she speaks, she'll die. And so they have to reconcile the fact with, you may be silent forever until you are not, and then I don't have you anymore. And the flip side is, I can't communicate with you in the way I want to, even though I'm perfectly capable of it. I can't. And so it's two people meeting each other halfway, learning a new form of communication, which is what you should be doing with someone when you want to pursue any type of relationship with them, is meeting them halfway. And it talks about like the long-term things, and I was stuck at a very specific point and I couldn't figure out where I wanted to go with it. And I'm always a big believer in just flipping to the next song on shuffle, and my answer will be there. It's like my little fortune cookie on Spotify. So many times have I been stuck or scared or frustrated, and I'm like, the next song, whatever it is. And the next song was When It's Time. And I'm not going to pretend that it's like some sort of like divine intervention, because I did play that song 468 times last year. Spotify told me. I was a little mortified, but also not, because I find that song incredibly poignant, and I think it's a beautiful description of teamwork. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this concept of I hope to see you when it's time, and I'm going to run with it. And then when I got stuck again, I flipped to the next song, and it was Those We Don't Speak Of by Auri. So what a coincidence that Johanna wrote both of those. That was purely a coincidence. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take the characteristics I love about this storytelling, and suddenly an idea was in my head. And as a tribute to it, I wanted to paint one of the characters. But there was a picture someone had sent me of Johanna as, not as Little Red Riding Hood, but it was something modeling she had knitted. And I was like, wow, that visual is really, it's really like putting something in my brain. I'm so excited. And I was like in the 90s when you waited for an image to load, I was just like waiting for this image to load. And I was like, when it was done, I was like, oh my God, I have exactly what I need. And so I literally ran to my iPad, which is the least friendly thing to be typing on, because I was in the middle of a Starbucks. And I started typing out the end of the story, and suddenly it was there. And then the painting came like literally a day later. But the story I'm writing now is probably something incredibly near and dear to my heart. It is called Aphrodite Rising. That was not the original title. The original title was much longer. And it's just about a girl who is so pulled away from society in modern times, but you would never know it's modern times. She's so pulled away that she doesn't know how to receive affection or give affection, and is okay with it, but does not know that she is starved for affection. So the conundrum of desperately needing human interaction, but desperately not wanting to interact with people, and how she learns how to trust people, and how it was kind of yanked away from her, and how she has to relearn the lessons she just learned without giving in to her old habits of being like someone who just doesn't see sunlight. And so there's a lot of moving parts in that story, and I have to go in and polish a lot of it, but it's really special to me.
I love that. And I love that your stories also, like, okay, there's only been two that I've read any part of, but you have these, like, wholesome outcasts that, like, they feel like they represent the people who, like, would never cause another person harm, but are treated like harmful, like all the minorities essentially, like, and even if it's not like 100% in line with your feeling, I feel like it's so easy to vibe with your characters because they are such just like lovable, unwanted people, kind of.
In my first story, the When It's Time one, the main character, I was really inspired by The Scarlet Letter, which I haven't read since I was 12. But the idea of being outcast from a society because your husband died and you wanted to marry again, but being outcast for that because someone died, even though there was no proof that they died. Like, why is that your fault? But that's how society thinks. And so that was what made that really special to me. And then with the character I'm writing now, I can't quite talk about it yet because it's a big spoiler. But we'll just say that she is a little jaded, but she doesn't know it. And she has a big chip in her shoulder, but doesn't know it because she's got no one to talk to. So her books are her socializing. She learned all of her social skills from books, and books are too perfect.
That's honestly gonna probably a character I vibe with a lot as someone who didn't really have friends for a long time.
Think of Belle from Beauty and the Beast meets Misty Day from American Horror Story.
I don't know her, but I do know Belle very well.
She's a pseudo Stevie Nicks. She's just a very lovable swamp girl who's terrified of human beings because they've terrified her, but just wants to love everybody. This is not a self-insert at all, but I'm realizing now as I speak this aloud, they're going to be like, you wrote yourself into a story. No, I would make myself much, much cooler if I did.
Oh, truly, like, There is a character in the Vitmar Chronicles that is my stand-in, but she's like the hardcore idealized version of me. Truly, every character in anything I write is a little piece of myself, generally.
Well,
like...
if you're projecting yourself, like I said, projecting yourself into their boots, you leave a little bit of yourself in there, or you take inspiration from them, even though they're not real.
Mm.
So, I mean, you can, like, there have been things that I've written where I'm like, wow, I want to be that way. Or you can meet someone in real life who is so unbelievably love and like kindness and positive. You're like, I want to be more like that. Oh my goodness. And then you put that in your own life. And then people see you and they're like, I want to be more kind like that. And it's just seriously just like a tidal wave. It's like playing a game of telephone, but we all just get happier.
Yeah, it's great. Positivity breeds positivity. I'm never going to stop saying it.
Abnormality breeds calamity, but calamity is not necessarily bad.
Sometimes you got to enjoy a little calamity.
I like me, especially if it's Calamity Jane.
There's pine trees that don't open and reseed until they've been confronted by fire.
Yeah,
So,
that's a metaphor.
Right?
I don't know. Yeah, you have to.
There's something in there for sure about, like, the forest will not regrow until it's been scorched completely. There's something beautiful in that.
Also really sad.
Imagine
not going through your big final transformation until you've been brought down to nothing.
Truly. Like,
that's truly rock bottom.
Something just magnificent in that, really, that no matter what knocks you down, a friend of mine, that same friend from the IGN message boards, he's been through a lot. And he said once, we're not glass. Once you smash glass, you can't put it back together. We're Legos. You smash us, and then you pick up the pieces and build them back. There's another thing, the song Seeds by Icon for Hire. I love that metaphor because they just say, you tried to bury us, you didn't know that we were seeds. And I just like choked up and started crying the first time I heard that line because it was just such a great metaphor that, yeah. And then that draws into Altamont Road where they've talked about like this road underground, and I started to imagine like a seed following this, like, how do I get, there's something up there I need and I want,
and they can't stop,
and then
it's gotta evolve.
Throw on that the line from Bear McCreary from the God of War song with Hosier. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Hosier. That's not. I'm from the Midwest. I have to say it that
I'm
way.
from Canada. Hoser.
Yeah.
A tree on
the snow.
A tree, yeah, that one. A tree denies itself nothing that makes it grow. And I also got really choked up at that line because I felt in that moment I had been denying myself so much love, and then I was like, oh, I've been hurting myself with this.
This is a sign for you to play God of War.
It is. I tried the first one and then I skipped the next three, but I think these new ones I gotta play.
The God of War and then God of War Ragnarok, those are profoundly amazing games. If anyone were to ask me what games they should play, I would say Skyrim, The Last of Us, and then you need to play God of War 1 and 2. Because it's just someone trying their absolute hardest to take care of someone and themselves and just failing all the time, but also learning incredibly profound lessons along the way. And we never ever see positive depictions of fatherhood in media. We never do. It's always your dad is dead. Yeah. Your dad hits you. Like your dad's a drunk. But this is just truly a man who's kind of a very big, lovable, strong idiot trying to be a good dad and a good like husband, and he has to pick one or the other, and truly going through it in a very momentous way, but also meeting some profoundly amazing individuals along the way.
I love that. They're definitely on my list of like. I've heard the first God of War game was great because it was done in the exact style of Greek tragedy. But then the games that followed didn't follow that, and they just kind of pooped on the original story.
They don't match at all.
They're not even considered canon like the same, are they? I think I read that like this is kind of like not. I don't really know what I understood of that, but it wasn't necessarily supposed to be like the same timeline or something.
Are you talking about like the latest two don't match the first three?
Yeah.
So the first three are just considered like ancient history because he's older by a lot. and they're referenced throughout, but you don't have to have played them. You start from scratch, basically, because he has started himself from scratch. And so there's like where you can read, what are those called? Like a codex, and you can get the backstory. But there's kind of minimal plot in the first three, other than like the big spoiler that I won't really like that happens in the very first game. I think that propels him about his family.
That's spoilers, of course. This game is very old, but
yeah,
that's like his just family gets killed.
He gets manipulated to the point where he doesn't know what's real and what's not, and he ends up killing his wife and his daughter that he loves, and he wears the chains and he covers themselves in ashes of their bodies, and that's why he's gray. And so it's just a really big hero's journey.
Well, my buzzer is going that we should probably wrap this up. I've been forgetting to do this so much. Is there anyone that you would want to shout out as a potential geek?
Oh, I don't know. Sweet baby angel Johanna Kortkola, and everyone around her, because I like talking about Skyrim, and finally someone else likes talking about Skyrim, and then I met more people who like the video games that also sing very beautifully and are very kind and nice, but also just like, I don't know, everyone I've met in the last year. They've really inspired me and helped me become who I'm supposed to be.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this while you were briefly in Finland.
Thanks for chatting with me.
And we're going to go to a show now.
I'm going to cry.
Stay geeky, guys.